Hello again, friends. Welcome back to Random Gleanings. Chris and I are on the same side of the table today, which means we've got a special guest, Jamie Pimentel. And we brought Jamie in today, Chris, on account of an expertise of his. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Jamie is a lender extraordinaire in the mortgage side of things. Welcome, Jamie. Glad you're here. We want to talk housing and mortgage rates.
Thanks. Glad to be here with you guys.
Absolutely. So let's talk about just first how things have been in the past year or so. Have rates gone up?
A little bit. So we got comfortable last. We had a 2-year run of rates really low. Saw rates in the low threes and thought things could be better.
Right.
We'd hit low to mid twos and we settled at around 3% end of 2021.
Yep.
We're early into 2022 and rates jumped dramatically.
So last we looked, mortgage rates on a 30-year were around what, 6.25%, 6.
Yeah, we're in low sixes today.
Yeah. Okay.
Down from the sevens not long ago.
Right.
So that and we're going to talk first just about how we got here and where things are now, and then secondly we're going to talk about real estate in the Southeast, more specifically upstate, South Carolina, and then thirdly we're going to talk about if we're compelled to buy a home, what we're going to use to do that, right?
Gotcha.
So interest rates, HELOCs now, home equity line of credits now. I got a notice the other day.
Primes at 8.
Yeah, I love to get those notices. Hey, just so you know, if you have any outstanding balance, your rate's now 8.25%, 8.5%, somewhere in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, because prime went from 3.25 to 8 in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been massive moves. There's no question. And so you would expect potentially some slowdown in some places in terms of lending because it's going to cost more, right, to make that purchase. What do we figure per 100,000? It was like
$1.80 on if you were financing a home at 3% and you helped us with these numbers and now it's at 6, it's about $180 increase per 100,000.
Yeah, so if you're buying a $500,000 home, putting 20% down, which is $400,000 loan that you're borrowing, and let's say you've been pre-qualified end of 2021 at 3%, and then all of a sudden rates went to 6, your mortgage payment is about $710 higher per month.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the reality of where things have gone from a cost standpoint, and that's no fun. I think the difficulty is, we have been asked by clients, either for themselves or for their kids or grandkids, hey, what should we do with housing? So next look, I think we wanted to talk about very regionally here, and maybe even more specifically, very super regionally here in the Greenville County. Chris, you pulled some numbers on migration in the country, and walk us through that chart real quick.
All right, so this is a picture of the United States. People with blue dots, you can see the Southeast by far has the most migration coming in. So, I mean, why are people moving here? I mean, what are the reasons, right? I mean, lower taxes.
Cost of living.
Cost of living, for sure.
We're nice people.
Quality of life.
So next graphic, home prices. This is the St. Louis Fed that puts this out. Home prices are roughly $220 a foot nationally. In our area, a little closer to
I found this morning, it said from March on Realtor.com, March of this year, it had it at just shy of $180 per foot, which to me doesn't mean that necessarily someone's paying a much lower cost of the house, but they're getting more house for it in that case, right? So, if you're moving out of a Manhattan area, living in a shoebox, you can get a pretty sizable house for that cost.
Which seems to be happening because, I mean, you go in the Costco parking lot and you've got Illinois, Nebraska, New York license plates. I mean, those people are not in Costco on vacation. They're here.
Yeah, buying houses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, another pretty key thing you pointed out, Jamie, was the notion of what's happening from a multifamily standpoint. So next graphic, this is National Association of Home Builders economists expect drop-off in 2023 in primary housing or single-family housing building before a rebound in 2024. And one of the points they made was apartments, multifamily construction, right?
Yeah, a lot of the big home builders, the production builders, the builders that build subdivisions, they're still building, but the number of permits that they're requesting are going down. And you're seeing the number of multifamily units are increasing. So what that does, I mean, you still have an increase in housing, but the supply of single family housing is trending down. And if you're in a market where you have net migration numbers are increasing, that supply and demand means, property values are going to appreciate. And if you're on the sidelines, waiting to buy a house, waiting for mortgage rates to come down, the cost of that house next year is going to be higher than if you bought that house today.
And meanwhile, you're paying more rent while you're waiting, presumably.
Yeah. So if you're not buying a house because you don't like the rate in the 6% range, it doesn't mean your housing is free.
So okay, so the case for why now is essentially, at least in our area in the Southeast, it's fewer homes potentially being built over time. It's people are migrating here because of affordability, lower taxes, nice weather, we're nice people, quality of life, lower per foot costs, right? So affordability is better. All right, so Jamie, if we're compelled that the case is that we need to go ahead and buy because people are still moving here and presumably prices are still potentially going up. In fact, I got one more graphic. The southeastern part of the U.S., I mean, we already know people are coming here. I mean, it's 10.2% growth in terms of home value year over year, and that was just last week. So, I mean, how do we do it, and how do you know when the best time to buy and lock in your rate is?
Okay, so first, let's talk about how you do it. One of the things we saw last year, 2022, was the comeback of ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages.
Right.
So those are, fixed for a period of time, and then they adjust annually or semi-annually, depending on your lender. Rates, creep up, ARMs come back. And so, what you can do is mitigate your interest rate risk by, for instance, did a lot of 10-year ARMs last year. When you think about it, 10 years over the life of a 30-year mortgage, that's a long time.
How long do people normally stay in their homes?
I have not seen a current number, but it's single digits on average.
Yeah, I think that the truth is that is where it is now. I think I heard it in comparison to maybe the baby boomer generation were much longer, but
Right.
anymore it's something like 7-8 years. I believe.
So if you're buying now and you're looking at an ARM or a fixed rate product, you should always be looking at opportunities to refinance that mortgage. And what I've seen, if you can lower your rate 50 basis points, a half a point in rate, mathematically I could show you how an interest rate make the refinance make sense. And it's really about how long does it take to recoup your closing costs.
But refinance is such a pain, right, Chris?
So it is a pain, but
No. I'm saying,
I mean, it costs money too. But let's talk about that because
we've both done it. I think we both did it.
And by the way, I know you mentioned you get tired of hearing people talk about when I was your age, I rate, whatever. Look, I bought my first house in 1999, and I had a 6.5 rate. But what I found so interesting was you bought your first house in
08.
Oh wait, and your rate was what?
6.25.
So I mean, maybe that's the normal time. Maybe this has been the abnormal moment, and obviously it's been good, but it's not insurmountable to have a 6 handle on a rate. I happen to think, however, that if economically things are a little more challenging, that rates probably do drop a little bit. So you had a phrase earlier: marry the house, date the rate. I mean, tell me how to do that without it being too much of a challenge from like refinance cost stuff like that.
So first, if you're a home buyer, you find the right house, buy it now. If you think property values are going to appreciate, get in on the price today. The right house for all the right reasons. If you're waiting to refinance, because you think rates are going to continue to go down, you're paying interest. And one of the things I talk to my clients about when we're refinancing, how long do you plan on staying in the house? And do you take a higher rate and get what's called a lender credit? And let me explain what that is. So let's just say, you're looking at refinance and the par rate is 5%. And that par rate means you're not paying discount points to buy your rate down. Customer says, hey, well, can I get a lower rate? And let's just say, I'm making this up, 4.875 costs a half a point, and on that same $400,000 loan, that's $2,000. Can I get lower? Well, 4.75. Let's say that's a point. That's $4,000 cost to buy that rate. Well, you can go up on the rate sheet and get what's called a lender credit. And again, using the same math, it's typically not linear like this, but 5.125, maybe you get a half point lender credit, $2,000. 5 and an eighth is
Right.
a half, 5 and a quarter. Maybe that if that's a point lender credit, $4,000 lender credit. So you could effectively get a lender credit by taking a slightly higher rate and pay all your closing costs.
Okay, so essentially at that point, you got a slightly higher rate for a period, but you're rolling all your closing costs into it.
Well, that could be a 30-year fixed.
Right.
So it could be a fixed rate, but what you're doing is if you're thinking, rates are going to continue to go down, so I'm not going to refinance now. And what if rates all of a sudden jump back up? Well, you've missed that opportunity.
Right.
So you could effectively, take a slightly higher rate, do a lender credit, call it a free refinance. And if rates do go down 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the road, you could refinance again and not be thinking, well, gosh, I wish
already paid all this money.
I wish I didn't refinance,
Right.
6, 9, 12 months ago because rates have gone down. Well, you can continue to ride that market down with that lender credit strategy to pay your closing costs and not be concerned about, I didn't time it right. Because I don't think, like I said, I don't think you want to try to time where mortgage rates are going because, that's
You
not.
may miss it.
I want to encourage people to rewind and go back and listen to that because I think that's really critical because obviously people are somewhat paralyzed with the rate having gone up as fast as it has, right? In some cases, some people have just said, I can't afford to buy at this. If we understand that in this area, Southeast specifically, costs have continued to go up in the face of rising interest rates, and there's the opportunity to refinance with your benefit of potentially doing that at low to zero cost, right? Why wait? It's hard for me to make that argument. So I would encourage folks to go back and listen to that piece about that lender credit on refinance. It gets a little complicated,
Right.
but it's worthwhile. Or if you've got questions, reach out to Jamie.
I'll add one more point to that. If
Yeah.
you think rates are going to go down and you're going to wait, if there's a softening on the market because rates, have increased, well, what's going to happen when rates go down?
Right.
So that the cost of that house will increase more in a lower rate environment because in theory, it is more affordable.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's the cost of waiting.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Makes total sense. Jamie, you got anything else to add in terms of good stuff for the listeners?
Well, I think a lot depends on everyone's unique situation. People got different factors going on.
Right.
And not, no one strategy applies to, every person. And so,
But there are strategies to take in whether it's first-time home buyer or whether it's the affluent market. And, I mean, there are things we can do to try to mitigate and not be paralyzed by what's happened in real estate with rates.
yeah, there's a lot of ways to structure mortgage financing. It's not one size fits all. I mean, the key is to make sure you're working with a seasoned mortgage professional that understands, all the different loan products, understands, the customer situation, what are their needs, and what strategies can you implement to, lower their, overall, interest cost and, continue to build wealth through real estate.
Right.
I want to support that, actually. Jamie, we didn't get into all those products, but you had shared some things that were very interesting to me for a first-time home buyer in zero interest down or zero cost down and stuff like that are some of those tools available. So let me just encourage folks that if they've got some of those questions to reach out to Jamie or someone like yourself to get that good information.
All right, Jamie, we're going to put your contact information on the screen here where folks can find you very easily. Thanks for being with us today. Jesse, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Thanks as always for watching. We're grateful to you. Please do click the subscribe button and click the bell if you want to be notified when we post. Thanks to Jamie from United Community Bank. And we're grateful to you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.